It's the Smart Driving Cars podcast. Thanks for joining us. We have another important guest in store for you. This edition is sponsored by the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF, symbol MOTO. For more information, head to motoetf.com. I'm Fred Fishkin, along with the Faculty Chair of Autonomous Vehicle Engineering at Princeton University, Alain Kornhauser. Hi again, Alain. It's the Smart Driving Cars podcast. Thanks for joining us. We have another important guest in store for you. This edition is sponsored by the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF, symbol MOTO. For more information, head to motoetf.com. I'm Fred Fishkin, along with the Faculty Chair of Autonomous Vehicle Engineering at Princeton University, Alain Kornhauser. Hi again, Alain.
Hey, good morning, Fred, on such a bright and sunny morning here in New Jersey. It's actually pretty nice in Jersey today.
Sure is. And we are very happy to have with us for this special edition, Kelly Funkhouser, the Program Manager for Vehicle Interface, Head of Connected and Automated Vehicles at Consumer Reports. Thanks so much for joining in once again, Kelly.
I'm so happy to be here again.
Great to have you again with us, Kelly.
This month, you're out with a report titled Active Driving Assistance Systems Test Results and Design Recommendations. Let's start out, Kelly, with a bit of an overview of what this report is.
Sure. So this is basically a head-to-head ranking of all of the driver assistance systems that are available in the market today. And over the past couple of years, we've really seen an explosion in the availability of this technology. And it is pretty much widespread all across the industry. I think there's only one manufacturer that sells in the United States that doesn't have at least one vehicle that you can get both adaptive cruise control and lane keeping assist on. So pretty much any brand that you're looking for, you can get these two technologies on a car that are able to regulate your speed, so adaptive cruise control, and also try to keep you in the lane for lane keeping assist. But all of the implementations and performance of these systems really widely vary. And so we wanted to create this report to inform consumers of the differences in the technologies, both the performance and some of the safety aspects of the system, to allow them a more informed choice when they go to purchase a vehicle.
And breaking this out from your typical car rankings was an important thing to do.
Yeah, so the testing of the ADAS systems is not part of our overall score of our road test report right now. We are looking into the possibility of adding it in the future, particularly because we see a high value in the safety of having driver monitoring systems in the car. And one of the use cases for a driver monitoring system is pretty largely tied to use of these automated systems in vehicles. And so we're looking at the potential of adding them in the future, but right now they are not part of the overall score because we try to keep that more safety related, and these we don't classify as safety technologies right now.
Before we get into the nuts and bolts, and I know Alan wants to jump in, describe for us how you went about doing this, because you wanted to do this in real world scenarios. So how did you go about doing that?
Right. So it's important that we test these vehicles, these systems, really both on the track for some of the driving behaviors that may be a little risky to do on the road, so we can do them safely in our enclosed track. And then we also really wanted to test them in the real world because there's so much randomness and unpredictable scenarios that you can find in the real world. So we did a 30-mile loop near our test track in Connecticut, and we used that same loop and would do it a couple of times to make sure that if we did encounter a tricky situation or there was an anomaly, we would do this loop over and over until we were sure that the results that we were getting were consistent.
So you created an operational design domain for yourself, if we could put that term on it, which is your 30-mile loop, which is appropriate, which you then make sure that, hey, at least it can be done with somebody closely watching it, which is, of course, the right thing that should be done. And that's really great that you did it. I just wanted to jump in a little bit on the cruise control, the adaptive cruise control. I like to call it intelligent cruise control as opposed to stupid cruise control. It does not only the regulation of the speed, but it also does the regulation of the distance between you and the vehicle in front of you, or the object in front of you, which is the key piece. Correct? I mean, that's kind of the
that's one of the key pieces, I think. Yeah, in adaptive cruise control. So part of one of the 5 categories that we used for testing is capability and performance. So the capability and performance testing of adaptive cruise control, yes, we looked at the following distance between our vehicle that we're in and a leader vehicle. And we did this at multiple different speeds. And within the car, you can adjust that gap distance. And so we tested it at both the nearest and the furthest, as well as whatever the center or default was, to see if there was, maybe the nearest distance was still kind of too far away. That would allow for a whole bunch of other cars to keep cutting in, and then the system would keep braking and things like that. So we looked for a range of kind of comfortable gap distance. But we also looked at the stop and go aspect of adaptive cruise control. So most cars that have adaptive cruise control now will come to a full stop. There's very few left that don't. But it's really important that adaptive cruise control does come to a stop and doesn't turn off at a certain threshold, like 18 miles per hour, which some do. Because what's happening in that situation is, if you're slowing, you're following a car. Otherwise, you would be maintaining your set speed. But then if the system turns off abruptly at perhaps 18 miles per hour, you're following a car, and the perception, the experience of the driver is that once that braking stops, you feel as though you're being propelled or accelerating into the back of the other car because the system has stopped braking. And so this could be a very dangerous situation for drivers who may not be expecting it, may not know this arbitrary 18 miles per hour. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And so we only tested systems that actually do bring you to a full stop.
Let me actually take this a little bit farther with what has been my pet peeve. And my pet peeve, and maybe I'm just stupid, and that's probably true too. But in my car, okay, I have adaptive cruise control. Okay, if I'm slowing down because the traffic ahead of me is slowing down, and it does a beautiful job of maintaining the speed, time to collision, whatever, and the things that it monitors, it really does a great job. If you ask me, praise it. However, every time there's a praise, there's always a how. If I tap the brake, because maybe I'm thinking, I'd like to slow down a little bit more, it turns it off. And that drives me nuts. And I have complained, I've written about it, I've done. Of course, nobody listens to me. Why does it assume that because I tap the brake, it turns it off? Now, of course, that's a rhetorical question on my part. I think I know I've found the answer. The answer is one of whatever. Oh, in stupid cruise control, when it was only controlling the throttle, attaching the brake implies that I certainly don't want to be doing anything with the throttle. And so you turn off the throttle. What's an easy way to turn off the throttle? We turn off the whole damn thing. Okay. But now these things do two things. They either control the throttle or the brake, right? Or I hope they don't do both, and whatever, Okay, me touching the brake just means turn off the throttle. Do not turn off the brake function. I mean, I may not be hitting the brake enough. I may need your help. You're supposed to be helping me. Why are you leaving me astray here and turning the whole thing off? Oh, that's the way you used to do it in stupid cruise control, and you just extended that and did it, whatever, and didn't think. Or apparently it's in the Society of Automotive Engineers that that's what you're supposed to do. What is the matter with those guys?
Well, I work very, very closely with many of the members of the
I
committee,
feel sorry
and
for
they're
you.
brilliant. They're brilliant, great people. But I think we're probably going to get pretty deep here. But
yes, I want us to get deep because
okay.
I don't understand it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just the only guy in the world that taps the brake because I just want the acceleration function to go away. But please, I'm still interested in the braking function. Talk to me here.
So one, I think it is rooted in legacy or tradition of how regular cruise control, or whatever you called it, dumb cruise control,
stupid cruise control,
cruise control works. But I agree with you that may not be the correct answer, and this is for a couple of reasons. First, I'm going to talk about lane keeping assist because this is a similar but newer system that doesn't have the legacy traditions, right?
Right.
So lane keep assist, one of the most important safety aspects of lane keeping assist is that the driver can steer collaboratively with the vehicle.
Absolutely. I agree. I love it. I mean, it steers me around the corner. I love it.
Right. So if you want to reposition your vehicle within the lane because there's another car that's driving on the lane line next to you, or there's a pothole, or any reason at all, you should be allowed, the system should stay on and allow you to steer around it. And then when you're done steering, it's still on and then tries to center you again. So that is absolutely important. So when we think of adaptive cruise control, it does half of that. It allows you to apply additional throttle, acceleration to pass the vehicle. And then when you let off the accelerator, it resumes going back to doing what you would set it to do at its set speed, much like lane keeping does and should.
Right.
But it only does half the thing.
Can I stop you there?
Yep.
I've never tried this because I'm too scared. Okay. If I hit the gas and to pass a vehicle, go beyond the speed that I had, and all of a sudden, is the automated emergency braking system still on in case when I go out in that lane, oh my goodness, whoa, yipes, and it applies the brakes over and above my throttle?
That's an
automated emergency braking system tied.
That's a tricky one.
Talk to me.
I don't know the answer to.
Okay. All right. Okay. We'll leave that up. We'll leave. Okay.
But it's a totally valid point, and I haven't done a whole lot of thinking about it, which I should and will now that you brought it up.
Thank you.
Because I think with automatic emergency braking (AEB), it's still somewhat of a new feature, and it does have a lot of false activations because of the nature of which sensors and inputs it's using to make those decisions. It can be tricked by shadows or
automated emergency braking system. Really? I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, maybe. I mean, that's really bad for an automated emergency braking.
I agree.
Because the automated emergency braking system is saying, "Oh my God!" I thought it was basically, you're less than 1.6 seconds the collision based on the darn radar and type of thing, which is really somewhat reliable on the time to collision, and then it tightens the seat belt, it closes the windows, it brings a thing down so the engine doesn't take out your legs, it you know, does all kinds. I mean, you know, the poop hits the fan. It's an automated emergent. I've never been there. I've luckily, you know, but apparently that's my understanding of that. That's sort of a third piece on this thing besides
So that's how it's
yeah.
supposed to work.
That's
And the
how it's
systems
supposed to
do
work. Yeah,
this to help pace engineer, all that jazz.
yeah. And I don't know how you guys test that either.
We have a foam car that we try to actually not hit. So we really like it when AEB does work.
And you put a little metal in the foam car, so make sure the radar really does the bouncing and all. Yeah,
it has that woven in, exactly. But if
I mean,
we do hit it, it's quite a pain to put back together. So
no.
But again, you brought up radar twice now, so that is one method of obtaining information from a sensor. Not all of the cars use radar. Some use cameras.
Yeah, I know. I'm assuming the camera ends up being as good, if not better, than the radar and so on. Whatever. Well, I hope so. All my friends who do image processing and all that stuff better damn be doing a good job there. You know.
No, a lot of
come on, Andros at Mobileye. You know, you know how to do this, sucker, and so does. Go ahead.
A lot of the false activations are commonly on vehicles that use camera. Some use a combination of camera and radar. But like I said, shadows and things like that, or a paper bag, you know, radar isn't going to pick up a shadow or, you know, see a paper bag because there's no metal in it.
Right.
A camera might, and a camera might think that that's a rock. Or you know, something else. So,
hopefully that whole thing is not only looking at one image, it's doing 30 times a second and so on, and determining the flutter, and on the flutter but hey, hopefully. We've got to get good on this stuff. We've got to get good on this. I mean, we must be good. I mean, otherwise you're going to nail them. I mean, you should. Please.
We do.
Yeah, and you should.
in one of our yearly surveys that we put out, it's all about the driver assist features. And so we ask owners of vehicles that have these systems like AEB, and they love to tell us all about false alarms and issues and, you know, positive things as well. So I think last year we had something like 72,000 survey responses. So we have a ton of data on these things. And so we are able to kind of find and identify those vehicles that are having these false activations much more often, and then we can kind of look and see, you know, is that a camera or a radar system? And so it's very interesting.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. We were still on now the tapping of the brakes and why they decide to turn the darn thing off. Come on, you know, turn off the acceleration function. Make me go and hit the throttle or do the jiggle or something to turn that back on. But man, I'm slowing down. And okay, so I might whatever, and so I'm phase out or something. I still need the braking function to be there to help me. If that's what you've been telling me, you're helping me up to this point with braking and throttle. I've told you I don't want to do throttle. I think that's what I've told you when I hit the brake. And are all the systems that way, or is it just my car, man?
All of the systems,
damn Mercedes. I mean,
and so I think it's a mismatch in, you know, using the system, and it can change your expectations, and it, you know,
absolutely, it's a mismatch, and they should change it. And the Society of Automotive Engineers should back off and not say that this is you know, somehow they don't want to intervene in the braking function because somehow you might get rear-ended. And I mean, there are some ugly things in some of that stuff that let me touch on Fred's. Let me touch on one other point that we're here, and then we'll get back to you know, automation versus warning. Okay, where do you think we should be on that spectrum? Okay, let me just tell you sort of where I am, and then please tell me how wrong I am. You know, I mean, we should be making these darn things so that if the car thinks I should stop, I should stop. Okay, it shouldn't just warn me. And if it's and it shouldn't just, oh, maybe or whatever. It should be good enough such that to do it, not just, hey, maybe you should watch out. I have found, at least with my own with the blind spot monitoring things, my experience with those, again, bring personal experience, which means nothing. Okay, data point of 1, which isn't even a good data point. Those things really do seem to work be pretty damn well. When that thing's beeping, I shouldn't be going, and probably it shouldn't let me go. Okay, but it beeps and so on, and I respond pretty well to that one or something, as an entity. But it probably shouldn't let me. Thoughts?
So, yes, I have lots of
I'm
thoughts.
sure. I mean, no, loved it. Because I mean, you've been dealing with it. I mean, this is a central piece of one of the big things that Consumer Reports is doing, which I think is enormously valuable. NHTSA is not doing this. Okay, they have their 5 stars and 5 stars. They should have 10 stars, and they need 5 more stars. Never mind. Go ahead. Go.
No, I think using blind spot warning is a great example of this. It's a technology that we find, over 80% of owners love this thing. And many of them say it's helped prevent a crash, like you said, if it starts beeping.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah, no.
And so yes, there's kind of 2 levels. So the blind spot warning is just that. So there is an indicator, that someone is in your blind spot. But if you're not intending to change the lanes, to an adjacent lane, then it's pretty unintrusive. So even if it's activating all the time, that's fine, because it's really kind of in your periphery. You may be checking your mirror, but you become used to kind of, glazing over that unless you need it. So that's one of the most important things to keep in mind, is that it's unintrusive, but there when you need it. So in terms of should it do something to prevent you from making that lane change if there is someone there? This is hard, because the blind spot warning system is pretty good and accurate. It's not perfect. So say you're in slower moving traffic, there may be someone in your blind spot and you're trying to intentionally merge because, there's an accident on the road and everyone needs to get into one lane. If there's someone in your blind spot, there's going to always be someone in your blind spot in heavy traffic like that. So if it prevents you from getting over, that's a little silly. So perhaps the solution is do it at a higher speed. Okay. So, there are some situations where it could also, it wouldn't be good to prevent you from moving over. But blind spot, again, is a pretty robust and accurate system. So although I may say, yeah, you can do that with blind spot, I wouldn't necessarily say that with some of the other features like lane keeping, because they just aren't good enough yet. And so I don't think that they should be making 100% of the decisions. So, but going back to blind spot, there's kind of 2 methods out there right now in vehicles. One is it uses steering to try to, prevent you from making that lane change, and some use braking. And in my personal experience, again, since we're going very personal here, I find the systems that use braking, which I think may only be on the Mercedes right now.
Yeah, Mercedes, I know that does it.
But it does have it on Mercedes, right? That is a quite jarring system. And I much prefer, personally, the steering wheel torque, because it doesn't regulate my speed. So I'm able to maintain my speed, which is important when you're making lane changes, right? Sometimes you even need to accelerate to make a lane change. And so providing braking is a little opposite, counterintuitive to what I want.
Yeah, well, preventing may be overstatement. I don't mean preventing. That you would have to apply additional torque on the steering wheel to overcome it. Right. There's at least there's a secondary input coming in your hands that's saying, oh my, then to keep you from doing it.
Yeah,
I sort of agree. You should be able to do anything.
Right.
I mean, hey, come on. I still have some manhood left here. Damn it! I mean, come on. Of course, I mean some of that, but the resistance should be there. And I agree with you with respect to the braking to keep you within the lane. The steering motor steering is just so much better than the braking thing. I'm assuming that Mercedes in the braking to keep you in the lane is kind of keeping that phasing that sort of thing out and so on and so forth. And with respect to crossing double lines and so on, the system should know whether or not there's somebody coming the other way or somebody in the lane. And if there isn't, then what the heck is it? I mean, who cares about the double line? Okay, in some sense. I mean, it shouldn't be then jerking you around, because what does that do? That just tells people, where in the heck's my wire cutter to cut the darn thing, or flip the switch and turn it off, which gets us to another issue here. How easy should it be for people to turn these things on and turn these things off? I mean, should they come on automatically every time you turn on the key, even if you turned it off before, or should it remember that you turned it off or whatever?
That's a harder question, because the safety systems are so important, and
yes,
and they're often on and never used until you really need it, and then
right.
they come on. And of course, no one ever expects to need it. So if they were to turn it off, that would be logical that people might do that, because
I mean, and I forgot that I turned it off also.
Right.
Holy hell, I turned it. I didn't, geez, I hit some keyboard keys here and my computer goes nuts, and I yell at it all the time for doing that. I didn't mean to hit those keys.
Right. So I think that automatic emergency braking and blind spot warning should be on all the time.
You turn the ignition on, or here I am turning the key. I guess people don't even do that anymore. I'm sorry. I am such an old guy. What the hell? What am I doing here? I mean, I'm just go ahead.
So few cars now use a key. So I'll park a car and be like, and then I'll leave the key in the ignition, like
I leave the car. Dummy, I leave the car running. I left the car. I've gone in and had lunch, and I come back and it's parked outside. Never.
I get it. So but yeah. So I think that those types of safety systems that are, again, fairly robust and perform well should stay on. But things like lane departure warning or the lane keeping, things like that, again, from the report, you can see it. There's, it's across the board.
It's across the board.
Performing well and not. And so I think if you turn those off, they should stay off.
Yeah. I tend to agree, but darn it, why don't they make them well? What is the matter with these guys? I'll blame it on the guys. I mean, if there were more gals in there, it would work well, wouldn't they? So, never mind. We won't go down that one.
Well, that's actually a good discussion, because why don't they make them well? I think that there's kind of two different approaches right now. And one is to make them well. And, it's not extremely hard to color within the lane lines, right? You can stay inside those boundaries pretty easily. And so there have been some very intentional decisions within these companies to not have a system like that as a supplement for keeping the driver engaged, right? So if it's a crappy system, you're not going to check out.
And you don't say, wait, are you joking? I mean, we're going to whack the person by letting them. No, go ahead. So, okay, yes. No.
I get the rationale, right?
I don't, but
actually, for a little while, I agreed with it, because safety is so important, right? Like the performance and capabilities of these systems is one thing, but Consumer Reports, we care, we double down on safety, right? So that rationale is acceptable in my book. But what we've learned over the past couple of years from those surveys that I was mentioning and lots of discussions within the industry is that people don't like these systems that don't perform well because they think it's broken. They don't like that it's inconsistent because some of them, again, that arbitrary speed doesn't work until you hit 38 miles per hour or something, right? And so if you're teetering around 40 miles per hour, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But how would you know it's 38, right? So people don't like that they're inconsistent and they don't perform well. And if you're going to have a system on a car that's trying to keep you in the lane, keep you in the lane. And so what we've learned is that people are really looking for lane centering type systems, but that means that people are more likely to check out, right? So you can become over reliant on a system that performs well. So we now are advocating for, create these lane keeping systems, but you absolutely must have a mechanism in place to ensure that the driver is ready and able to take over control at any moment. We know the driver is responsible legally, and they need to be able to do that. And it's human nature to become complacent. It's a super boring task to monitor an automated machine. And so it's, I think, the responsibility of the manufacturers, if they're equipping their vehicles with a good performing, highly competent lane keeping system, then they need to have driver monitoring also.
I of course absolutely agree. You've got to keep the driver engaged in the task. Whether or not you have to make sure that they're digging a trench while they're to keep them engaged in the task is not necessarily, I don't know. I mean, they give us Corinthian leather and comfort of whatever and automatic transmissions, so we don't have to put a clutch in and double clutch it into second gear to keep us, I mean, they've taken a lot of the engagement piece already out of it. They've made it super easy with power steering and all this other stuff. So I don't want them to run and say, oh my goodness, if we keep you in the lane, we're going to make sure that you have to do the work of keeping you in the lane just to keep you engaged. I mean, I don't think it follows. I mean, maybe, but it's a stretch. But absolutely, you have to find. I mean, I think that what Cadillac came up with their system, eye tracker, absolutely. If you're going to want to use the toy, you have to remain responsible.
Right.
You can't be irresponsible. You can't hop in the back seat. I mean, cut it out. You can't go to sleep. Cut it out. And nobody should even be. It should be no. Absolute no, because then that affects me if you do that. Sorry.
I agree. Yeah,
you're endangering me. The hell with you. I mean,
there are other people on the road. I know.
There are other people there. There are other people along the road. There are other people's property along the road. Come on, how can you be that? Come on.
Yeah. So the eye tracker, the infrared camera that Cadillac is using is great because at a minimum, it makes sure that I'm not asleep, right? It makes sure I'm awake and generally looking towards the forward roadway.
And
it's not perfect. You can trick it still. I've seen and heard tons of people, they mount their cell phone on top of the instrument cluster. And so
great.
Okay, I know it's not perfect, but at a minimum, you're awake.
But if you have over-the-air updating of the darn thing, you can, each time they do that, it's, you sort of go and catch up to them. They do that again. You pull the car over to the side of the road. You stop. You say you want to use it anymore. Get a note from your mother. Sit in the corner with your dunce cap for 2 hours, and then get a note from your mother, and then whatever. And otherwise, you don't get to use it. Okay, I mean, it's I don't, do we need NHTSA to do that? Do we need regulation to do
We
that?
do.
Or damn it,
NHTSA
NHTSA
step up on
shouldn't
this.
need to do that.
No, they should have to do that.
Manufacturer should be responsible. You should hold
I
the
agree.
manufacturer responsible. Say, you don't do that for your system. It doesn't deserve a good rating from Consumer Reports.
So
Damn it, the hell with you. We're not with you, right? Which is where you are.
That's where we're headed. And what I said, you know,
yeah.
These aren't in the ratings right now, but that component of driver monitoring is so utterly important that that's what's going to, you know, send us over the threshold to include vehicles that have driver monitoring in them and put that in the overall score. But I do think that there needs to be some government regulation on this, because as you can see, almost every vehicle, every manufacturer on the market right now, you can get this system. How many have driver monitoring? Very, very few. And they're working to improve them because everyone wants to win this self-driving race, and they're not looking at driver monitoring. I think the government needs to step in and require this to get the industry moving faster.
Kelly, you're selling yourself short. You guys, no, seriously. I mean, seriously, you do influence car buying. I mean, it's none about it. Okay, you've influenced. Hey, everybody. I mean, I've forever since I've been buying cars. It's always seriously, and it's good that you're there. And I have another one that you need to be good on as soon as Fred gets in. And
well, I wanted to ask you, Kelly, that you were talking about the systems from manufacturers throughout these ratings, but there's one that actually got a top score in your ratings that is aftermarket. Tell me about that.
Yes. So this, I'm going to start this off by saying we published a consumer article a few weeks before this report came out last week. And this system was not included in that initial report. But we decided to go ahead and put it in this industry report because we feel that the industry can take some cues and learn some lessons from this device. So again, prerequisite. We aren't recommending people go out and purchase an aftermarket device such as this that can change some of the characteristics of your vehicle's behavior. You have to plug it into the OBD with the Toyota Corolla that we installed it in. You actually have to splice it into the camera behind the rear view mirror. And so, we're not recommending it at this point that consumers go out and do that. Okay, great. Now that I've said that, again, we included this in the industry report because it performed really, really well and had many of the safety systems that we're looking for. So the next two runner-ups to this system, the Comma AI, were Cadillac and Tesla. So those systems both perform well. The Cadillac, again, has a driver monitoring system. The Tesla does not, but the Tesla actually slightly outperforms both the Cadillac and this Comma AI Comma 2 device. But the Comma 2 has a driver monitoring camera that is looking at the driver, is very responsive at detecting whether the driver is paying attention or not, and will go ahead and start slowing the vehicle to a stop if it's detected that the driver is not paying attention. And it's fairly easy to use. It's kind of plug and play. So basically, we wanted to kind of call out this device that costs $1,000 with the full package, with all the installation equipment you need, 10 minutes to install it. And why aren't the other manufacturers that have all of this automotive experience in making cars and designing these systems, why aren't they doing some of these things that this very small startup is able to do effectively? Why aren't they putting in a driver monitoring camera? This device has one. Why aren't they making a good lane keeping system that keeps the car in the lane? This little device does that. So there's really no excuse for why any of the larger automakers can't get better scores in all of the categories if this little $1,000 aftermarket device can do those things.
And comes out on top in your rankings.
Yeah, I mean, let me. Yeah, I'm somewhat jealous personally of what Comma AI has done here, because in fact, for a while I was sort of looking at the aftermarket space to do exactly what Comma AI has done, and has done a really good job. You know I hope that one of the OEMs should buy the damn whatever, or something, or license a product or something like that. Part of the problem with trying to do it as a small startup, outside the industry, in the aftermarket world, is that if anything happens to any of the cars that have this, then poor Comma AI gets dragged in.
So
whether or not
there's a caveat there.
Yeah.
So this device, and talking with George Hotz, the creator of this, he's developed this framework that uses open source software, right? Yeah. You can go on GitHub and download this. So yes, an automaker should snap this up and buy it, but they don't even need to. Yeah. The plans are on the internet that they can go and get. So again, another reason.
Yeah, I mean, that's even easier for him, though. I mean, I hope it doesn't happen to him. But for him,
I hope that of any car in any manufacturer,
if you get dragged into whatever happens in that kind of situation, you almost can't afford the legal services that you have to do to protect yourself, and for all those things. So I hope he's found a way to be able to get away from that caveat, because in fact, to me, that kind of approach to doing this allows one to go to the used car fleet and completely upgrade the used car fleet safety wise. So if one is really looking at accelerating penetration into the world of these safety devices, one could wait for people to buy new cars with them on and But with this, you can go penetrate everything that's out there now. So there are enormous opportunities, I think. But talk to me. Maybe I don't see it well. Maybe I'm not seeing it well.
So one caveat is that the vehicle itself needs to allow for this device to have enough freedom in the steering torque and command over the accelerator and brake pedals.
No, absolutely. Or we even have an electric steering motor on there, and that's a relatively new innovation. And surprisingly, at least my understanding as to why the auto manufacturers put in an electric motor power steering unit in any car was because they apparently got 1 mile per gallon benefit in fuel economy of using an electric motor as opposed to the whatever power steering units that they want. So the movement to even have something that you can control that would put enough torque to be able to steer it from a computer as opposed to whatever. But at least there exists some amount of vehicles out there in the used car fleet on the road today that could almost trivially, as you point out, be upgraded safety-wise with these kinds of systems. And these, I think IIHS and whatever has shown that, in fact, these do have fundamental safety implications. And personally, I'm surprised that the insurance industry hasn't gone out there and basically subsidized, invested, pushed, said that you own a vehicle that has the capability to have this thing put on. If you put this thing on your vehicle, we will give you whatever. We'll pay for it. They could pay for them. They could pay for them, depending on how bad of a driver you are, which of course you're not. They can pay for the damn thing and be more profitable.
Okay, I know Fred wants to break in,
Yeah.
and then I
I know.
have
I
a
mean, well,
rebuttal.
I mean, we're into it now. Well,
It's certainly a great concept and really interesting. And we're going to be back with more specifics on the Consumer Reports rankings. But first, this is a good time to remind you about our sponsor, the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF, symbol MOTO. To get more info, head to motoetf.com. On the website, check out the white paper. It's called the Smart Transportation Revolution. You'll find it under the Insights and News tab. Lots of information there to help you make informed decisions about investing. ETFs, as you may know, can be a smart way to spread risk with investments and focus on a particular category of stocks. The site, once again, is motoetf.com. We are back with Kelly Funkhouser with Consumer Reports. Kelly, let's finally take a look at how well automakers did in your ratings for active driving assistance systems. You mentioned a couple.
Yeah, so just to start at the top, this device we've been talking about just now came out on top. But we also don't recommend at this point for consumers to necessarily go out and purchase this device and stick it on their car. Although it was quite a thrilling experience to basically have a self-driving Corolla. It's this device really was meant to provoke the industry to try to take some steps forward in advancement of their own systems. So, who came out second? That's Cadillac Super Cruise, and they came out on top of our list 2 years ago when we did the first ratings of these systems, and the performance is up there in terms of doing a good job at lane keeping and adaptive cruise control. But what puts them over the edge is the driver monitoring, which the third place in this industry report is Tesla. So Tesla outperforms Cadillac slightly. It just has a slight edge in terms of the performance of it. But it's lacking the driver monitoring system at all, and doesn't allow for collaborative steering. So that's a big issue because it creates this mental model for the driver of either the system has it or I have it. And it's not a teamwork. And so that can lead to more complacency and over reliance on the system because it's like, okay, you got it or I have it. We're not doing this together. And it may even make some drivers hesitant to take over if they need to. And they may find themselves in some riskier situations where, like I said, if you want to reposition in a lane to, avoid a car that's kind of hovering on the lane line, you may not want to do that because what happens is the steering assist, the auto steer in Tesla turns off. And it seems like a small thing, but if that happens frequently, then it becomes quite a frustration and annoyance to have to keep turning that back on. And so the easier option is to, perhaps just let the system do its thing and see if it makes it. So that's not very good.
Yeah, my for whatever it means, I really appreciate you pointing out those fundamental differences and the fundamental mental state that one puts you into versus the other. I totally agree with you on that. My only complaint with respect to the GM system is, how can they only put it on one model? I mean, come on, GM, you've developed such a good system. How can you keep, people who buy Chevrolet from having this? I mean, come on, GM. Anyway.
Yeah, they have, and you aren't able to purchase a vehicle right now that has Super Cruise on it. They do have plans to put it into many, many more vehicles soon. But that soon keeps changing. And I know COVID, delayed a lot of things.
Oh, come on. God, come on, GM. I mean, that's just such a, it's got to be deeper than that. It has, for some reason, they don't see the financial value of doing this. They don't think that they can sell more cars. It's not chrome, it's not a fin, it's not Corinthian leather. Darn it, GM. Come on, go to the madmen on Madison Avenue and turn them around.
Yeah, I think that it may come around to bite them because, as you can see, you can get these systems on almost every brand out there. And a lot of the other systems, so following Tesla is the Ford and Lincoln system, and then Audi, and then Mercedes-Benz, and the Subaru, then Hyundai, which is actually a phenomenal system as well. All of these other manufacturers are really kind of nipping at the heels of Tesla and Cadillac. And so if they don't step up their game, then they may be outrun.
Yeah, and it may even seem, I don't know, I did go to a Subaru dealer not some time ago, but not too long ago, and it seemed like they were actually trying to sell these kind of the eyesight system and promote it, and Hyundai is coming out, and I think hopefully some folks are really going to see that this is really something that helps them sell cars to people. Why? Because it's treating your customer better, isn't it? I mean, why isn't GM treating its customer better here, huh?
Yeah, and actually, we just mentioned Hyundai, and I want to point out one thing that I really like about them that's pretty unique is that they are pretty much the only one right now that allows the driver to decide how much and what level of driver assist they want. So most of the other systems link both adaptive cruise control and lane keeping together. And most of the time they use a single control. So you push that button and you have adaptive cruise control and you have lane keeping. But Hyundai keeps those two features separate. So if you only want the lane keeping, you can turn that on without the adaptive cruise control. If you want the adaptive cruise control, you can turn that on without the lane keeping. You can turn on both simultaneously. And this is, again, important fundamentally because cognitively, you're disassociating these two functions from being a full system, right? Whereas the other vehicles are saying, this is a system, these two features are linked together, and now it's doing speed and lane, and it's, level 2 or whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah, no, I don't want to call it level 2. You know that. No, I don't. Yeah. But
you're sort of hinting at it, Kelly. But you did come out. I guess this is one example, but you do have some recommendations here as well in this report.
Right, and that's one of them is to keep these two features independent and control, and the driver should be able to control them independently as well to kind of step back that mental model of this combination of these two features. I don't know why that decision was made, but everyone's kind of jumped on that ship and is doing that model, but Hyundai is not, and they I wanted to point them out for that because I think the rest of the industry should do that.
Yeah, and I'd like to also put the recommendation in there. If I tap my brake, don't turn off my braking function. Darn it. Come on. I mean, please. Anyway.
What are some of your other recommendations?
Yeah, I got it in twice. I mean, come on. Sorry, Kelly.
I mean, so number one is driver monitoring. If you're going to have a vehicle, a system with lane keeping, driver monitoring is your responsibility as an automaker to do so.
Yeah, and if you don't, turn it off. Okay, or pull them over to the side, slow them down, do whatever, and then say, we need a note from your mother. Okay,
I agree that what I just explained is the minimum. I think that even the Cadillac system with the infrared can be improved because it can be tricked, right? And a quick look up satisfies the system, the warning system, to turn off, and then it gives you a few more seconds again before it'll do it again. What really would matter and be important is to detect, kind of your scanning and gaze and fixation pattern, because that is more indicative of actually paying attention than trying to satisfy this warning. So yes, at a minimum, Super Cruise is kind of doing its thing. There needs to be more. So absolutely, but the industry is clearly not even there yet. So I'm like trying to give baby steps. So that's number one. And then the driver, again, needs to be able to collaborate with the system, whether that's through Alan's recommendation of don't turn off ACC if I hit the brakes, and also with the throttle to pass the vehicle, don't turn off the ACC, but also with the lane keeping. Now, this is a little bit tricky, so I'll try to get it out clearly, but let me know if you don't get it. So some of these systems have what we call a standby mode. So you may turn the lane keeping assist system on. And even Cadillac has this. And actually, Cadillac is one of the worst offenders in this one. Is if I then do decide to collaboratively steer to reposition the vehicle or go around a pothole, it goes into standby. We just talked about how these systems should immediately try to recenter you. Cadillac doesn't do this, and it's quite finicky then to get it out of standby and back into the active mode again, because it's, you know, very particular, more than most vehicles. Now, why this is important is because it is identifying who is in control. Is it the car or is it the driver? If the driver turns something on, it should stay on. What happens in these systems with standby is that now the vehicle is saying, I'm on, I'm in standby, and now I'm on. And then now I'm off, and now I'm on. And so it creates this idea that the system now is sporadic, inconsistent. What do I have to do to get this thing back on? And it may draw your attention down to perhaps a small little icon in the instrument cluster of, you know, it's changing from blue to green or gray to green, something like that, of it's active or it's in standby. So now your eyes are off the road.
And it's not on that little green thing that the GM put on the steering wheel, which it was
GM
really
has that
cool.
where it goes to blue, right?
Yeah.
But it's finicky now.
But the other one is down there where you go down there. What the hell's going on, right?
So any effort
dive.
that is drawing my both either visual and or cognitive attention to trying to satisfy a system or get the system to do its thing is less time that I am cognitively or visually looking outside and scanning and maintaining situational awareness, because we can't do both of those things at the same time. And so a system should be on and stay on so that I can pay attention to the road, and it will reliably attempt to recenter me after I take my hands off or you know, have completed a maneuver. And so this is kind of a new recommendation that we put into this this report for the first time, but I think that it's actually one of the most important things. So Cadillac and Tesla at the top are two offenders of this. Tesla immediately shuts off, which is actually better than the Cadillac method of going into standby, because you know it's either on or it's off, but it doesn't allow you to reposition and all the things we talked about earlier. So a lot of the systems that are kind of middling in the rankings of performance have this tolerance where the system will stay active if you're within the lane lines, and then maybe only goes to the standby, which again shouldn't exist at all, but at least some of them have a tolerance to stay on if you're within the lane lines, but some will go to standby if you cross them.
But Kelly, I don't understand. Okay? I don't understand. I mean, I have my hands on the steering wheel. I turn it to avoid. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
It should be that still trying to keep me centered, but not with a whole heck of a lot of force, such that I can easily go around it. And then if I, you know, and if I let go, then it should just, you know, it should realize that I let go. I want you to do it, right? Or I'm touching it lightly. Why? Can we blame this on the Society of Automotive Engineers too, please? I mean, it must be. It must be. They must have. And you can't get their stuff because you got to be a member, and I refuse. They wouldn't allow me. I don't qualify. So whatever. Never mind.
Especially not after today.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I yell at their levels, and now I yell at the, you know, whatever. No, no. I mean, isn't that shouldn't. Talk to me.
Well, I think that's what Kelly's been saying.
I think so, right?
Yeah, I don't think that there's a standard, but someone, if you're listening, please correct me if I'm wrong on that. But we do see the variation in the amount of resistance or torque in the systems, and some of them kind of have like a gutter, right, where they ramp up.
Yeah, sure.
Resistance, and I like that a lot. But those that are, you know, have a lot of resistance when I'm trying to make a small move or something like that, it can be jarring.
Yeah, no. So I mean, a lot of people can do research on that. They get tables, run curves, and all that stuff. People figure out the right, but it would just seem to be fundamentally the way this thing should operate. I mean, it you know, if I want to be there, I'm turning. Otherwise, I'll turn it off. Right?
Right.
Okay. If I've
Yeah.
turned it off, then it's off. I'll turn it back on. Now it should be a cooperative thing. We should be in it together. And if I take my foot off the gas and I take my foot off the brake and I take my hand off then I'm saying do it. If I touch the brake, turn off the gas. If I touch the gas, don't turn off the brake because the brake helps me and I may not know what the hell I'm doing with the gas. So but anyway, you get my gist on that one.
Right.
Kelly, before we wrap up, I think
Yeah.
maybe you want to throw in a couple of words for our viewers and listeners and really to the general public about how important all of this technology is today. I mean, it wasn't very long ago when none of this existed. What does it mean?
So this report, we specifically only included adaptive cruise control and lane keeping assist. We did not include some of those safety systems that we mentioned earlier, like blind spot warning and automatic emergency braking, any of those things, because we wanted to keep these two features a little bit separate. And so it's important to realize that these right now, there's actually no data to isolate lane keeping assist and adaptive cruise control to show that they are in fact safety systems. So the data that's out there that may hint at this, or some may interpret as being, these are safety systems, haven't been isolated from those other actual safety systems like AEB and blind spot warning. So those two and some of the other safety systems are very effective at reducing injury and crash and all of that. And so these systems right now we consider convenient systems that are there to make driving less stressful or easier, more convenient, right? And so we're not recommending anyone at this point go out and seek out these features with the intention of expecting these to be safety systems. So
I think you're selling yourself short. Okay. I mean, the number of crashes, lane departure crashes that exist, or who knows what. I mean, you can go through that. The number of tree strikes, the number,
potential safety,
and that's what the steering. Now, how many of those things do that, and and so on and so forth, and really getting the correlation, I don't know. But if it's keeping you in your lane, I mean, what's driving? Stay in the lane. Don't hit anything in front of you. The intelligent piece of cruise control is really important, so you don't run up somebody's behind. Okay, which is what stupid cruise control lets you do if in case you zone out, which people are gonna, if I misbehave and text in my car, damn it, I run up. And so it is a safety feature. I think you're selling yourself short. But,
I think that it's potentially a safety feature because of those things you've said, that lane deviation and road departure type of accidents are pretty high numbers. And of course, we want to reduce those. I'm saying the data's not there. And we base a lot of the things, almost everything we do on data.
Okay.
And because of, in this report, you can see there's a few systems that are able to actually keep the vehicle in the lane. No one was perfect. Not Tesla, not Cadillac, not even Comma AI.
My system on my car is terrible. So whatever, go ahead. But yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So until there is even a sufficient amount of vehicles that have a very capable and high performing lane keeping systems, we won't even begin to be able to collect those data. And so it's still going to be a little ways out. These systems have a lot to do to improve. Number one, they need to have driver monitoring. And then we'll look at also the capability and performance.
Well, terrific.
Fred, can I do one more since I have her here? I just love to hear her opinion on this or whatever. If we could spend another minute, sorry.
Sure.
I'm really abusing you, Kelly. I'm sorry. Okay. No, I love it. I often make the statement when I give talks and so on. I don't think I've ever driven and seen a sign, along the road that encouraged me to use either even my stupid cruise control or my intelligent cruise control. Are these systems so bad that there's no whatever road agency that might, if you've got them, what's the thing? If you've got it, smoke it, and use it.
Again, going back to, I don't think we're there yet to say that these are safety systems, and therefore I don't think that, especially a government agency, should be promoting even use or getting them on a vehicle right now. Eventually, I think so, because of the potential for safety implications.
But what about the environment? I mean, if I drive at a constant speed, the amount that I heat up the planet is less than if I do one of these guys in speed. No,
yeah,
whatever. Not even the tree huggers are out there doing it. No.
This past year, we've rolled back emissions standards.
Yeah, okay.
So
I know. I know. I mean, I think it smooths out traffic. It makes everybody. I've a long time ago, that's, of course, nobody listens to me. I always thought that if you turned on your cruise control, you should have a light go on in your car someplace that identifies you as being of driver type using cruise control. We're all different driver types. Okay. We sort of, they're the left lane hog, hang in the left lane, go slow. They're the fast ones. They're the people pass on the right, left. We all have different driving behaviors. We have sort of the constant depression of the gas pedal driving behavior that gets you slow, do that, If you're in cruise control, that is a driver behavior. That should be known to the drivers around you. Why not? Why is it that we we hide that? What's the problem? If I know you're on cruise, the way I argue, if I know you're on cruise control, I'm on cruise control, and we're sort of like, then, I might just, say, hey, we're both on, who cares, half a mile to hour or whatever the hell I set the damn thing on. I have intelligent cruise control. I'm going to be, but I don't know that you are. Why? Because I
don't know.
And darn it, and they told me, well, you can't have additional lights out there because you'll look like a police car. I don't know what kind of garbage that, excuse. And we didn't do findings of, went through, 4 years. I did ask
I think that's
Nathan
a very,
use about that one, and he sort of took me to task on it. So, but
no, I think that's a very interesting idea, and I think that's a great place to leave it so that I can cover it and think about it, and then we'll do this again.
I don't know. Anyway, there's something, put it in there. I just think it would be, I don't know what we're hiding.
There's got to be pros and cons, and I will.
Yeah, and I really haven't heard the cons, but I'm waiting to hear them anyway. Fred.
Maybe some
Kelly,
have ideas.
We really appreciate you taking all this time with us, and really appreciate the great work that you and Consumer Reports. It's so important, the work that you've been doing there. So thank you.
Thank you. And and hopefully we had a little fun doing it and whatever,
Absolutely.
but this is very serious business. Okay.
And the overall website is
very
consumerreports.org.
Anyway, thank you so very much, Kelly.
Thank you. And thank you to our sponsor, the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF. The ticker symbol for the ETF is MOTO, and more information is available at motoetf.com. You can find us at smartdrivingcar.com, also on Anchor FM, Spotify, TuneIn, Apple, Google, Spreaker, SoundCloud, wherever you get podcasts. Your smart speaker can play us. You can find my tech reports at textination.com. I'm Fred Fishkin along with Alain Kornhauser. Thank you so much for watching or listening, and please continue to stay safe.
Yes, and happy Thanksgiving to everybody. And, be careful out there.